Ayanokoji states that, as long as there was no merit in bothering to engage in dialogue, there was no need to follow the two and respond. Despite that, he takes the first moment of introspection into his own feelings. He decides that he doesn't hate carrots. In a way, this just goes to continue elaborating upon Ayanokoji's apathy. However, the statement, "I don't hate them," has the implication that there are things that he does hate. This implies that whilst Ayanokoji never necessarily likes something, he has levels of disdain. However slight, he has things that he dislikes more than others. At this time, he also talks about how there was trouble after meals, since he doesn't know how to kill time. As you watch Yuki walking around the room by herself, he wonders why she doesn't have the same overly pragmatic view as him. After catching her as she was about to fall, Ayanokoji witnessed someone smile for the first time. For him, this was a complex memory, one that transcended his view of emotions in humans. This, while subtle, showed that Ayanokoji was in fact different. Even he goes to state that smiling is just a natural phenomenon to humans. As such, it could be expressed without the need to learn it. However, despite all of that, as we've seen, Ayanokoji has yet to smile. This is a hint that the apathy that he is so overtly displaying might be in his genetics, not completely caused by the education of the White Room. In the next chapter, Ayanokoji begins with a short monologue regarding the regulations of the White Room. It was explained that all of the children receive many health checkups throughout their stay, emphasizing the experimental nature of the project. The natural schedule of the White Room involved a short supplement-filled breakfast before several hours of study, followed by physical training. During this, the children would never speak a single word of their own accord. Then, they would have dinner, bath, and undergo physical examinations, and at 9 p.m. they held a meeting, a time for children to converse about the day without supervision. However, the children weren't allowed to just talk about anything. The adults would still interfere if there was ever an unnecessarily intimate discussion. They were only able to discuss responses to the day's studies. The details of the schedule isn't overly profound. However, the last few lines given by Ayanokoji are quite significant. He states that, "Our schedule was set down to the minute, a day in the White Room, a world that never changes each year." This statement might not seem too special right now, but in the future, it will become quite relevant. After a short time skip, the story of the White Room gets a lot darker. Ayanokoji states that every few months or years, there came a time of great change. That's when some of the children began to have trouble keeping up with the curriculum. The meritocratic nature of the project was finally starting to come into play. The level of study was increasing little by little. Some of the children were beginning to fall behind. Despite receiving the exact same education, it was clear that some of the children were just superior to others. In an attempt to keep the momentum and rhythm of the superior children, the managers of the White Room decided that removing the inferior children was a necessary choice. The main scene of this chapter involves Ayanokoji taking a test alongside the other White Room students. He has a short monologue regarding the testing process before describing the reactions of one of the other children. He talked about how many of the other children repeatedly checked their answers, even after solving all the questions on time. Desperately clutching onto their test papers, they knew that even a single mistake would mean the end. Despite all of that, Ayanokoji would stare at the front of the room, holding a pen in his hand, pretending to still be answering the questions. In reality, he had already finished and was spending the rest of the time idly. He stated that he wasn't worried about the possibility of making a mistake, because he knew that he didn't make such a mistake. He stated that the questions on the test paper and the answers that he wrote down were imprinted in his mind, word for word. It was at this moment when we hear one of the most iconic quotes in the entire series. We are finally given the context of the quote we hear all the way back in Season 1. For the first ever time, one of the adults approached him during a test. "Kiyotaka, I looked up as he called my name. Remember well, a person who has power yet neglects to use it is a fool." In the next scene, he begins to have a rather private conversation with his father regarding his decision. Despite his father's rather unpleasant attitude, Ayanokoji rebuts, stating that he never instructed him not to hold back. After some more dialogue, Ayanokoji states that the instructors already knew that I would get a perfect score this time. There's no need to write down the answers on paper every time. It's more time efficient to leave it blank. They continue to discuss the various variables which affect a person's knowledge. In this exchange, we see firsthand the hubris of Ayanokoji, in a way that doesn't appear egotistical but is so in nature. He explains that he has absolute confidence in himself, and thus does not ever need to make an abeyance in order to solidify his knowledge. Still, his father is adamant about his original contention. Not using one's power is a fool's errand.